All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most important, but maybe one of the most misunderstood documents in business. I'm talking about the service level agreement, or the SLA. It's kind of the invisible contract that makes so much of our digital world actually work. So I want you to picture this. It's the busiest day of the year. Your website, your app, your entire way of doing business online just goes dark. Total panic, right? Who do you even call? What are they supposed to do? And how fast? How fast do they have to fix it? And what if they don't? Yeah, it's pure chaos. Because let's be honest, in that moment of absolute crisis, a promise like "we'll do our best" is, well, it's completely useless. Vague promises about good service mean absolutely nothing when your business is grinding to a halt. You need something real, something you can measure. You need an SLA. And here it is, the service level agreement. It is so much more than just a piece of paper. It's a contract. It's a deal that creates and I love this phrase, a shared reality between you and your service provider. It takes all those fuzzy, feel-good promises and turns them into hard numbers that are legally binding. It's the playbook for when things inevitably go sideways. So how do these things actually work? I mean, what's inside an SLA? It's not just one giant promise. It's actually built on this foundation of data and goals. To really get it, let's break it down using what we call the reliability pyramid. Okay, so at the very bottom of this pyramid, you've got the raw measurement. That's the foundation. In the middle, there's the internal goal your team is aiming for. And only at the very top, the peak of the pyramid, do you get that public contractual promise. You know what? Let's make this super clear with a simple analogy. Imagine you're driving your car. The SLI, that's the service level indicator, is basically your speedometer. It's the raw, unvarnished data. It tells you your performance at this exact moment in time. Right now, it says you're going 68 miles an hour. That's not a goal, it's not a promise, it's just a fact. Now, the SLO, the service level objective, that's your personal goal. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to try to stay under 70. It's the target you set for yourself to stay safe, maybe avoid a ticket. It's your internal standard of performance. No one else knows about it, but you're aiming for it. And then you have the SLA. In our analogy, this is the legal speed limit posted on the sign, 65 miles per hour. This is not your personal goal. This is the external, legally binding promise you've made to everyone else on the road. And if you break this one, well, there are real financial consequences, a speeding ticket. See that gap between your internal goal of 70 and the legal limit of 65? That's your buffer. That's your wiggle room. Okay, so we get it. An SLA is a promise that's built on data. But what kind of data? What are we actually measuring here? Let's dive into the specifics, the actual numbers that can literally make or break a business. This is where you hear people talk about the nines of uptime, and a promise of 99.9% uptime. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? But here's the catch. That still allows for almost 9 hours of downtime over a year. Now look at 99.999% uptime. We just added 2 more nines, but look what happens. The allowed downtime absolutely plummets to just over 5 minutes for the entire year. So yeah, those nines, they matter. A lot. And here's another super important point that often gets confused, the difference between response time and resolution time. Think of it this way. Response time is just the provider saying, hey, I see the fire. Okay, great. But what you really care about is resolution time. That's the moment they can say, the fire is out. A really solid SLA will define both of those times very, very clearly. This all sounds great in theory, but what makes any of it stick? What gives these promises their power? Well, it all comes down to accountability. Let's talk about what happens when a provider doesn't hold up their end of the bargain. I love this quote because it's so true. An SLA without a penalty is nothing more than a service level suggestion. It's a nice thought, a friendly guideline, but it has no teeth. It's the consequences, the penalties, that transform this document from a suggestion into a powerful tool for managing risk. So what do these teeth actually look like? Well, the most common are service credits. Basically, you get a discount on your bill when the provider messes up. If the failures keep happening, you might get the right to terminate the contract and walk away. And some of the more modern SLAs even have something called earnbacks, which lets providers win back some of those credits if they really knock it out of the park later. Now, it's really important to understand that not all SLAs are the same, not by a long shot. The whole point and the power of an agreement changes completely depending on if it's with a vendor you're paying or if it's with your own internal IT team. This is a huge strategic difference. Just look at this comparison. An external SLA with a vendor, that's a legally binding contract. The whole point is to transfer risk, to make any downtime the provider's financial problem, not just yours. But an internal agreement, sometimes called an OLA, it's more like a handshake deal. It's all about getting different teams to work together smoothly. The penalties there aren't about losing money, they're about performance reviews. You can boil it all down to this. Internal agreements are about building a culture of service. External agreements are about enforcing contractual compliance. One is about building relationships, the other is all about managing risk. Both are critical, but for totally different reasons. And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. I want you to consider the critical services that your own business depends on, both inside your company and from outside vendors. Do you just have a great culture where people try their best? Or is that culture also backed up by the hard, legally binding promises of contractual compliance? Because honestly, the answer to that question could be the difference between a tiny little hiccup and a total disaster.